Thank you again so much for joining. My name is Evan Golden, and I am the lead solutions architect and PM for the VisualScript for Jira and Confluence applications. So today's webinar is titled Portfolio and Essential Safe Planning and Reporting with Jira Software and VisualScript. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you can, please enter all of your questions into the Q&A box. I'm joined here today by our VP of Product, Joshua Platt. He's going to try to answer as many of your questions live as we can answer during the webinar, and we will also answer as many as we can at the end with the time that we have. We are recording this session, and with that, a member of our customer success team will follow up with you just to provide you a link to that recording and also get details on where to send you that t-shirt. So let's go ahead and review our agenda. So first, we will discuss how you can use out-of-the-box configurations in Jira to implement the essential level of safe. Next, we're going to talk about how you can implement the portfolio level with only Jira. Then we will review some of the challenges that come with implementing safe with Jira, followed by a review of some of the common reports and planning tools used in an organization that is practicing safe. And then we will review what VisualScript is, and finally, we will demo the VisualScript safe solution. All right, so you can configure safe with out-of-the-box Jira software configurations. Let's start with Essential Safe. It is the foundation and the lowest level. Its focus is on feature development by multiple agile development teams, which make up a single agile release train, or ART. There are multiple ways to configure Essential Safe in Jira, and the visual shows only one of these ways. It uses a single Jira project for an agile release train, which houses all of the epics and stories worked on by the teams in the ART. Safe features are translated into Jira as Jira epics. They live in the program backlog and are managed by product management. The program backlog is a Kanban board used to manage the development and the deployment of the epics. There's one epic to many stories, and they are connected with the epic link field. Stories are the work items that are assigned to the development teams, and together they meet the requirements of each epic. Stories live in the team backlog, and these are scrum boards that are used by the development teams to manage their stories. Stories are assigned to sprints or iterations in a program increment, also known as a PI, using the sprint field, and the fixed version field is typically used to configure which PI a story is assigned to. The fixed version field is typically used to configure which PI a story is assigned to, and the teams are assigned stories using the component field or a custom field. Then the filter in each team's board searches and finds stories only assigned to that team. Now, adding the portfolio level, it usually includes another Jira project. The project houses the strategic initiatives that are worked on within the business. In SAFE, these would be known as portfolio epics. When Portfolio for Jira, also known now as Advanced Roadmaps, was released, they used the term initiative. Basically, an initiative is simply a large body of work that, when completed, provides value to the customers. There is one initiative to many epics, and they are linked via a built-in link type or a custom link type created in Jira. Initiatives live in the portfolio backlog. This is a Kanban board that is used to manage the status of initiatives. But what are some of the challenges that come with these out-of-the-box configurations? So as you can see, Jira is great at configuring a safe implementation. However, the biggest challenge is that management does not get that much needed reporting. There are many challenges in reporting. For example, different roles in the organization need to see the reporting from different data sets. Let's go back to the previous slide. There are three data sets here. They are the initiatives, the epics, and the stories. So different roles in the organization have different questions, and they need to be answered with one or more of these data sets. For example, a product manager will need to see the reporting around the stories their teams are working on and how they roll up to the epics they are linked to. Also, management may want to see different representations of the same data. We all consume data differently, and a report is only as good as the questions it can answer by the intended consumers. There are a lot of reporting apps out there. However, many of them will dictate a few things. One, they tell you what data you will see. And two, they tell you how you will see it. This does not help meet the need for different data for different roles and the need for different representations of the data. So with that, let's review some of the common reports and tools that are needed for planning, reporting, and retrospective. So roadmaps are tools used for planning. For top-down planning, having a roadmap at both the initiative and the epic levels is quite useful. Dependency reports are useful utility tools that help with the planning process. Understanding the dependencies of stories in an epic, of epics to each other, and of epics within an initiative even, can help the roadmap planning at each level of SAFe. Velocity reports are not just at the team level, but also for the entire Agile release train. Understanding how much work the entire train can do per iteration and broken down by teams is useful. It is also a valuable tool for retrospective to monitor trends at the train, team, and sprint levels. Program boards, or program increment PI boards, are good for planning and viewing the stories by team and by sprint assignments. It is also used to manage and view dependencies between stories across sprints and teams. Burn up and burn down charts are not just at the sprint level, but also for each program increment. Seeing the burn up and burn down for each sprint and PI helps answer critical questions around performance so that decisions can be made for future sprints and PIs. In order to get many of these common reports and tools, you require a marketplace application that works with Jira software, like VisualScript. So VisualScript is a reporting tool for the entire Atlassian stack. It currently specializes in reporting for Agile software development, ITSM, ESM, and DevOps. It is a marketplace application that is available for both Jira and for Confluence. It is currently available in both server and cloud. All reports will live in a Jira dashboard gadget or a Confluence page macro. It is a reporting tool with a long list of built-in reports, and I will demo many of those today. And it's also a developer's tool, and custom scripts can be created in JavaScript with accessing the APIs in both cloud and server. So with that, let's go ahead and demo our SAFe solution with VisualScript for Jira. All right, great. So you should be able to see my dashboard now. And like I said earlier, in VisualScript for Jira, all of the reports live in Jira dashboard gadgets. So I'm in my dashboard right here. And when I go to add a gadget with the app, you'll see that there is a VisualScript gadget available to you. Once you install this gadget, it will come with a folder structure. So now these folders are created on the back end. And really what they're used to do is to organize your scripts. So for example, I can put folders within folders. And really what I'm doing is I'm organizing, housing my scripts so that it's easy to find, they're easy to find for my users. Now my reports section is my custom script library. My custom scripts can be created in many different ways. For example, we have a text editor on the back end and you can create scripts with JavaScript. You can also import and export reports between instances, which is great for testing and then moving to production. Also, you have access to the built-in report templates. So users have access to all of these built-in reports, but on the back end, these are templates. And basically what you can do is launch any one of these reports. It comes with the entire report, all of the parameters. And what that allows you to do is to create it and make it your own, and then organize it under My Reports as you want to. So you'll see there's a long list of built-ins here. We're always adding to this. And really the idea is that any user in any role can launch VisualScript and find a tremendous amount of value with just the built-in reports alone. So let's go ahead and demo the SAFe solution. We're going to start at the portfolio level. And the first script we're going to demo is our initiative roadmap. Now, the parameters are basically what shows when you first launch a script in VisualScript. And there's one or more of them in just about every script. The idea is that you enter values into them. They reach into Jira, filter the data based on the values entered, And then they run the script and create and render the visual into the gadget. So for our initiative roadmap, the first parameter is our project key. Then the next parameter is our fixed versions. And we're using PIs for our fixed versions. And really the idea here is to have a start date and an end date in these PIs so that you can time box and frame the roadmap. Next, do we want to show our epics true or false? So initiatives only or initiatives and epics. The next parameter is our team filter. Do we want to include team information for only specific teams? We would enter their names here, or we leave it blank to show all, which is what we will do. The team field that we're using. So we're using component, but as you can see, there's a drop down here, and you can select project keys. You could select even portfolio or advanced roadmap team, tempo team. If you select custom, you would just type in the custom team name here. We're going to use component. The data type we're going to use by story points instead of by time tracking. The last parameter here is, are we integrating with portfolio or advanced roadmaps? The idea here is if you select true, it's going to use that parent link field to understand and identify the relationships between the initiatives and the epics. If we select false, we will use the relates link type, which is that out-of-the-box link type that comes with Jira. So now this is going to use our Gantt recipe. We have a lot of recipes that are available in the cookbook, which is in our documentation page on our website. And this one is our Gantt. Now we have multiple different ways that we can represent roadmaps. And the idea here is that we're showing our initiative to epic relationship. So the top level is our initiative and hyperlinks to all the issues. And then the next level include our child epics. So you'll see here that the next column here is our team assignments. Now, these are assignments using the component field, as I said in the parameters, as I set it to. And basically what it's doing is the component assignment, team assignment at the story level. So my stories are assigned teams, my teams are assigned to stories, I should say, and that's rolled up to the epic. So you'll see that for each one of these epics, team A, team B, and team C have stories that are assigned to them. So it rolls right up, and then that means that team A, team B, and team C are working on each one of these epics, which in turn they're working on each one of these initiatives. The estimates work the same way. So these are story points, and the story points are estimated at the story level, rolled up to the epic, and then that is rolled up to the initiative. The start and end date is based off of my fixed versions that I set, which include, then here's the duration in days. And then I get my percentage completed. So percentage completed is then shown in the progress bar. So I could see my progress of my entire roadmap here. I could see my progress of each initiative and each epic within the initiative. You'll see that everything starts purple and then it works its way to black as it's completed. All right. So as we're doing our roadmap planning, as we're planning these things out, and we need to have conversations around dependencies. You know, for example, there might be an attractive feature that we really want to get out to our customers. But in order to do that, we need to complete this infrastructure feature first, which, you know, management doesn't really see as something that's providing value to the customer, but it's required in order to get that valuable feature out there. We need to understand these dependencies. So as I said in the slides, dependency reports are really useful utility reports that help guide the planning process. So we have an initiative dependency report, and you will see one of these at pretty much every level that we demo today. And the idea with a dependency report is to show all of the child epics within it, a single initiative, and their dependencies. So what I'm entering here is just the issue key of the initiative, which is the same initiative up here under number 2. The link type that I'm using at the underlying issue to create the dependencies, I'm using blocks. Am I integrating a portfolio? Meaning, is my initiative to epic relationship using that parent link field, or are we using the relates link type? So when I run this one, this is going to use our grid recipe. You're going to see a lot of the grids throughout this demo, just used in different ways and to represent the reporting. And you'll see that on the far left, we're showing our initiative in gray. In the center row, this includes all of the child epics using that relates link field. So these are all of our child epics, same as that are up here in the roadmap. And then you'll notice that for each epic, we have a status of it's blue to do, yellow in progress, green done, which are the traditional Jira colors for status. And then you'll notice that in each epic, we get a hyperlink to the epic. You get the summary, the status, and then you also get this hyperlink here, which shows that there's 6 stories in this epic and the percentage completed. Now let's talk about how the dependencies are done. So at the top here, it's showing that SARTP 22 and 23 are blocking SARTP 19. What that means is there are stories in those epics that are blocking stories in my center child epic. And then at the bottom here are the epics that my center child epic are blocking. So SARTP 17 and 16 have stories that are being blocked by a story or two in SARTP 19. So it reads top to bottom. So with this report, in addition to our roadmap, we're really able to define how we're working on our initiatives and how we're working on our epics. So now we work our way down to the essential level, and we have a feature roadmap. And the feature roadmap is going to show you how we can have different representations of data in terms of having different formatted roadmaps. So in our feature roadmap, we just asked for the project key, the fixed versions again. Do we want to filter teams? I'm going to leave it blank. What is our team field? We're going to use component. And then show dependency lines between the epics. I'll just leave that false for now. And I'll show you that basically this is a grid formatted roadmap. And there's 2 columns. The left column will be for PI1 and the right column will be for PI2. And in each column, we'll have our epics. So you'll see here, PI1, PI2, we have our epics within each one of these. And let's look at SARTP 19 as an example, which is, and basically it's a hyperlink to the epic, the summary. There's our team assignments again. And now, again, this is at the story level. So these are the component fields set to each story. Status, blue to do, yellow in progress, green being done. You'll see we have that hyperlink for the 6 stories, 100% resolved. And then we also have this feature called an expanded view. The idea with the expanded view is it creates a whole new visual. So basically what we're doing is we're digging deeper. So in SARTP 19, which is the epic, we have these 6 stories, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, and 124. We added a bunch of data in here that represent, detailed data around the stories. Now this is customizable on the back end, but we're including the summary, we're including the sprint assignment, the team assignment, the story point estimates, the status, and then the dependencies as well. So pay attention to SARTP 123. We're going to talk about that quite a bit throughout this demo. And you'll see that SARTP 123 is blocking 109, 111, and 113, and it's being blocked by 131 and 141. So this is an example of how you can dig deeper into an epic and not only see the data as it relates to the stories, but also really dig into those dependencies and have a conversation around that. So really, the goal is to eventually get to PI planning, right? I mean, that's the big event in SAFe, is to get to PI planning. Before we do that, we need to fully understand dependencies. So we're going to use our epic dependency report. So we just enter the issue key of SARTP 19 once again, and then we get to the blocks link type. And then we run this report. It's going to look very similar to that initiative dependency report, except the anchor issue is going to be the epic. So you'll see on the far left, we have our epic, SARTP 119. The center issues are our stories, the epic linked stories, 124, 123, 122, 21, 20, and 19. It's the same exact that are in this feature roadmap expanded view links. And then we have our dependencies. So you'll see that 139 and 141 are blocking 123, same as here. 123 is blocking 109, 111, and 113, same as here. So it's a different way to see the dependencies, right? So different representations of the data. We have it up here in the expanded view, but we also have a really quick and easy way to view it in a visual down here. So in order to do our PI planning, we need to have a good understanding of how much work our teams and how much work our train can do. So for that, we use our program velocity report. This is a great tool used for planning out the next PI, but it's also a really wonderful tool for retrospective to go back in there and see and monitor trends of how we're performing, not only at the team level, but also overall as a program. So we enter the project key, a start date and an end date so that you can time box and frame how you're measuring velocity. The team field is component, and the data type is story points. Now this is going to use our grid recipe, but it's going to be 3 different tables, and they really feed off of each other really well. So the top table is going to be our team table. And you'll see there's a row per team. There's hyperlinks to all the issues. And within the expanded view here, you'll see we actually break it down by sprint. So you can see all of the estimated, completed, and the velocity over time. So you can see the trend. And basically up here, overall, you get the overall estimated, completed number of sprints and the team velocities. You get it for all 3 teams. Now, this is not meant to encourage competition anyway. This is meant for product management to take a look at this as they're doing their feature planning so that we understand when we get to PI planning, how much we can assign to each one of our teams with the idea of getting better every time. So the second table is our agile release train table. So this is our total estimated story points overall for an iteration, total completed number of sprints, and then that program level velocity. So that velocity for the entire agile release train. And then you'll notice in the last table, we have the number of sprints it will take to complete the remaining work. So this is the total estimated work minus the completed work based on our velocity. So if the difference is 43 or less, it's 1 sprint. We hopefully always sit at 1 sprint. If we go above 1 sprint, something must have happened. Either someone went on vacation, we estimated incorrectly, something. And that's okay. There's no good or bad velocity here. The idea is to get better, but we always want to know what it is so that we can then research as to why it is what it is. So now, with that said, we've mapped out on our roadmaps our features, our initiatives. We've got a good understanding of dependencies, and we now know how much work our teams and our train can do, and we're ready for program increment planning. So we have our program increment board, and basically it's what you would expect in a PI board. It's a grid, and it starts with the project, SARTP, the sprint names. So you'll see sprint 1 through sprint 4. I'm doing 4 sprints for my development sprints in a PI. Then we have our team filter. So you'll see I can leave it blank to include all teams, which is what I'm going to do. Then we have our issue types. So I'm going to include story. And the team field is component. So running this report, again, it's going to be a grid. And on the y-axis, you will have all of your teams based on the component field. And on the x-header axis, you will have your 4 sprints. So notice you could see the stories that are assigned to each team and each sprint. So if I dig in deeper, you could see that 143 and 139 are assigned to team A via the component field, and they're assigned to sprint 1 via the sprint field. You get a hyperlink to the story, the summary, hyperlink to its epic, and the status. So also notice, then you go sprint by sprint, team by team, and then we have all of these cross-team and cross-sprint dependencies. So the idea here is as we're going through our PI planning, we're organizing stories by sprints with the same sprint cadence across all of our teams. We're using the blocks link type to create our dependency links, and then our output, our source of truth, is this PI board. Now here's our SARTP 123 again. We have our 2 inward and our 3 outward dependencies. So like all of our other levels, we have a dependency report for an individual story. And it's our issue dependency report right here. So basically you just enter the issue key and the link type, which is blocks. And it's going to be a single column dependency report. So you'll see SARTP 123 will be the center issue. And there it is, right there. At the top, you'll see 139 and 141, that's blocking it, and 109, 111, and 113, that is blocking. So you see how we kind of dig deeper through each one of these reports. They all work together to tell that story. We're starting out road mapping. We're looking at the dependencies. Our issue dependency is literally that single column within the Epic dependency report. But they all provide basically answers to different questions at different levels within the data sets. Okay, So we've done our planning. We know what work we're doing. We've assigned work to teams, and we're executing. So as we're executing, or after we're done executing the PI, and we're doing retrospective, either way or both, valuable reports that are needed in order to see how we performed day after day is our burn down and burn up reports. So I said in the slides, it's not only limited to sprint, right? It's also understanding the burn down of all of our stories across all of our teams for an entire program increment. So for that, we use our program increment burn down report. So the parameters are SARTP project, our fixed version or program increment, PI1. The data type, we're going to use story points and not issue count. Are we going to team filter it? No, we'll leave it blank for all teams. And what is our team field? We're going to use component. So this is going to use our line chart recipe. And we have a bunch of different types of charts. I'll show you some of those today. But our line chart recipe is going to be used to represent our burn down. You'll see the black line is the ideal burn down right there. The red line is our actual burn down. We get a bunch of data up here, right, or just basically about the burn down and the PI itself. So you'll see the ideal burn rate and the actual burn rate. So we did pretty well. And then if you want some more detailed data around the day-to-day activity, you just click the expanded view and you zoom in, and you could see the start of day story points, the resolved story points, how much was added in that day, and the story points at the end of the day. So as you're doing your retrospective, if you had certain days where you were a little problematic or things were added, we had scope creep, you could take a look at this and you could just scroll through and navigate through, and you could see that, oh, we had one day where we had 18 story points added, and that caused maybe the need for an additional resource to jump in, whatever the case may be, to help us meet our goals. So just like a burnout, we also have a PI burn up, so program increment burn up. It's the same exact parameters as the burn down, except going from the number of story points down to 0, we're going to be burning up from the numbers from 0 to the number of story points. So you'll see the ideal burn up right here in black. The red line is the actual. And then this green line here is representing scope. So we want to track scope and to see increases and drops in stories. So you'll see it's steady, steady, steady. And then we have that jump. This is those 18 story points we talked about in the burn down. And you can see in the expanded view, I can see it here as well. And we have hyperlinks to everything. So if you want to see the issues that represent the 37 story points I'm looking at here, then you can do that. It doesn't matter. So there's that increase. So we know that. But we also have these burn down and burn up reports at the sprint level. So here's our sprint burn down. And we have an additional feature here that you won't get with the out of the box sprint burn down. So let's just walk through the parameters. You have the project key, the sprint name, the data type. And then we have this concept of capacity. And this really helps us with risk. So I'm going to leave it at 75. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that when I run the report. So everything, it comes with the ideal in the black line. Here's the ideal, this black line right here. The red line is our actual. And this idea of capacity is really helping us with risk, because if we have any problems, like if things are steadily going along or we have these increases in scope, we want to be able to measure at what point do we have a higher risk. Well, we can handle it right here. But as we get here to day 4, that scope creep has really put us in a situation where we're at risk of, based on capacity, not being able to complete the estimated work. And if you want to see the expanded view, you can see that here as well, day to day, story point counts by story point counts. And then we have the burn up, same parameters minus the capacity. And when I run this report, it's going to be very similar to the PI burn up. And you'll see the black line for ideal, the red line for actual, and here's that scope line. There's those 18 story points that we've seen all along in the story, and then takes us right through here steadily across to the end. Okay, so those are the safe specific reports in the demo. We also have this concept that it's going to be in our next release, are these standard reports. And the next release is coming up, really soon. And basically the idea is we created these chart reports, area charts, bar charts, pie charts, line charts, gauges, and they can all be used report off of any field in any project. Now, this is extraordinarily valuable, particularly like in our ESM and ITSM solutions, but really valuable also in our agile software development solutions, because things like cumulative flow. So we have an area chart here, and we're going to use the same project as all of our other safe data, and we're going to report off of status. But you'll see there's a bunch of different types of fields here that you can use. And if you want to use custom, you just select custom and type in the field name of the custom field. I'm going to report off of the last 2 weeks, but you do get options for different time durations. And the issue type we'll stick with, let's just do story. So I'll delete that. Do we want to include unresolved issues only? I'm going to select false because I want to see resolved and unresolved over the last 2 weeks. Then, if you're really good at JQL, so this report can be used by anyone, but if you're really good at JQL, you can filter the data even deeper by putting JQL statements into this parameter here. So this is just going to be a good looking area chart. And the idea is that we want to find bottlenecks day to day. So it's just an area chart. Each color represents a status. And if there were any bottlenecks, you'd be able to easily see which day the bottlenecks were occurring, just like any cumulative flow. And then we have an expanded view here where you can see day to day the number of issues within the status. And this will help you identify those bottlenecks for sure. And then you get a hyperlink to each one of those data sets. We also have pie charts. And for our pie chart, we're going to keep the same exact parameters, minus the fact that we're going to report off of the fixed version field. So we're going to report off of how many issues were in each PI, were assigned to each PI. And we're going to do both unresolved and resolved issues, and we'll leave the JQL filtering blank. So this will be just a standard pie chart. And you'll see we have the number, we have the percentage for each PI. If I hover over it, it's going to give you the PI1, the number of issues, and the percentage. And again, you get the expanded view like all of our other charts that includes the different options as well as the number of issues with hyperlink. And then we have our bar chart. So we also have a bar chart that's available in a gadget. We're going to do this one off of sprint. So we're going to do the number of issues by sprint. We'll leave the issue types. We're going to do only unresolved issues, and we'll leave this blank. And you'll see that we're basically going to get only the unresolved issues by sprint for that project. So you see sprint 5 through sprint 12. These are the number of unresolved issue count. You get the expanded view as well, which gives you the same information. If I were to edit the parameters and go back in here and select this to false to include resolved and unresolved and run this, it's actually going to show me all the issue counts from the previous sprints as well that were completed. So you'll see that right here. So now it starts at sprint 1 and then it takes you from sprint 5 all the way. So you get that information right there. So those are our built-ins, but I also mentioned that we have custom reports too. So we talk with a lot of different customers, and as a matter of fact, the output of a lot of those conversations are the built-ins that you see here. So one of the use cases that we had in particular that I want to show you is quite relevant to today's conversation. So it's a customer that we talked to, and you'll see it's under my reports. It's a customer that we talked to, and they wanted to see the statistics around stories. So what do I mean by that? That based on a time frame, they wanted to see by team, basically things like committed and delivered, right? How much did we deliver based on what was committed? How much was added? How much was dropped? How much was rolled to the next sprint? How much was unestimated? All that data. So parameters we used are project key, start date, end date, the issue type being story. Do we want to include future sprints? So we create a lot of sprints in Jira to basically plan out our PI as an example. But our active sprint is usually somewhere in here. And even though we don't have start dates and end dates yet in Jira for our future sprints, we do know that we're doing a 2-week cadence on our previous sprints. And we can basically look at the sprint ID and get a good understanding as to what we think those dates will be. So we are basically calculating what the dates should be for the future sprints, and we're including those within the time box here as well. And then the team name being component. And this is going to use a couple recipes. So this is going to use our grid and our gauge recipe. And it's a custom script. And the idea is basically it breaks it down by team. These are your components. you'll see the number of issues and story points committed, the number of issues and story points completed with the percentage, and then you'll see the gauge representing the number delivered versus completed or committed. And committed is basically what you committed at the beginning of the sprint minus the drops. And then you have added, you have dropped, you have rolled, you get all that data. And then if you want, you can even click in the expanded view and you could see sprint by sprint, the same data set. These are the previous sprints, even active sprint, and then these are future sprints in gray. And then you get the legend here. If something was yellow, you would have unestimated issues and you can be able to see that as well. So the idea with that is we have conversations with a bunch of clients. We can show this report, and if it meets a use case for multiple people and multiple customers that it's extraordinarily useful data, then we can modify it, update it, and run it through the entire process and make it a built-in as well. So that concludes the demo portion of the webinar. Let me go back to the slides. Okay, so breakout sessions and Q&A. Joshua, how are you looking with that?
Okay, great. That's some wonderful questions. We'll start off two kind of related. One is, how can we modify these reports to better work with how our team functions? Don't quite do what you guys are showing here. Somebody else asked, a really specific example of that. Any tip or idea on how we can incorporate a team from the train that uses Kanban for the PI planning? Kind of related of just how we modify these, how can we make these adapt to what we're doing? Do you want to take that one, Evan?
Yeah, so for the Kanban for PI planning, you're still going to want to break it down into iterations just because of how the PI operates. So the way I've seen it is they'll still use Scrum boards just so you can line up those iterations, but they'll just work in that continuous flow of plan release throughout the iteration itself. Now, it might not necessarily get released, but they'll just continuously flow that data through. So that's how I've seen it, just because we need to line up those sprints, those iterations, I should say.
Great.
Hopefully that answered the question.
I think so, yeah. And a couple more related. So one is, on what data point is capacity based on in the burn down report?
Yeah, so the data point is actually, it's manually entered in the parameters. And the data point is based off, it could be based off of velocity. When you look historically at velocity, it could be based off of the idea that you have all these resources that that were added to your team, and you just run an estimate based off of that. But really the goal is you enter the capacity based on what you think it is so that you can manage risk as the sprint goes on. That's the idea behind that metric.
I'll take the next two. They're related. So one is how we say we're constantly updating our scripts. We're always, shipping improvements and new scripts. How is that communicated out to customers and users? And related, who can actually modify these scripts? How do these scripts work? So I'll answer the second one first and then get to the first one. The scripts are created by admins. So it's in the admin area. Most of what you saw today was the front end users building and using dashboards and setting parameters. So from a script building, it's done by an admin only. You can restrict permissions that way. At the gadget level on a dashboard, we follow the dashboard permissions. So if the user has access to that dashboard, they're going to be able to see the reports. If they have only read access, they're only going to see them, can't make any changes. If they have edit access to the dashboard, they'll be able to do what Evan was showing today and change parameters, etc. It's set by that dashboard permissions. In terms of communication out, we've got three primary ways. First is in the release notes. Anytime we're making changes, these release notes will be pushed out. For server customers, you'll be notified, as you always do. You'll see what's changed in the release notes and you'll know what's happening there. And then you can choose to upgrade when you're ready. We do backwards compatibility, so versions of scripts already present in a gadget will keep behaving that way. And you have to go and update that script. It's kind of just a way to keep things very stable. And cloud's a little different. Cloud, obviously, you're going to get the latest we keep things working, so we're always adding rather than breaking fields, and those changes are always communicated out via email to customers and in our what's new section, so you know what's happening. Forward looking, we tend to do a public roadmap, and also we tend to show kind of previews and highlights in LinkedIn. Probably a lot of you have seen some of Evan's work where he lets the information out. So you'll kind of get sneak peeks of what we're working on, be able to have a conversation, you know, on social media around what's coming, etc. So all great questions. I've got another one around PI planning. So during the PI planning, if teams are in breakout rooms, does the program board, especially for dependencies, auto-refresh? Do we need to constantly reload the page to see the updates? That's a great question. I'll take that one. So today, you need to refresh the page to see the change. It doesn't live update. As soon as you refresh the page, the script will rerun and then it'll update. We're working on some new features coming up in the next quarter or so that'll give some more flexibility around that, where you'll be able to either cache it so you won't see any updates or have it update. In most cases, you're going to require a page refresh. That's just for performance reasons. We're not pulling and hammering the server for new data constantly. We're trying to keep it at a real lightweight app to work at scale. If you wanted an auto reload without refreshing the page, that's a great suggestion. We'll kind of add that to the backlog for as we're thinking about this caching and updating mechanism. It's a great question. I think that's it for questions.
Okay. So let's go over here. So thank you again so much for joining and your questions. We have a lot more scripts. So I showed you that story statistics script. We have a lot of things either built into the tool or custom scripts that we've created. We're happy to share them. I mean, with that, so we'd be happy to schedule some time with you and discuss how Jira software and VisualScript might be able to help your use case. And we very may well have the script already that can help you out. We're also always adding more to the built-in library. And with that, we will schedule more webinars, so look out for those. Someone from our customer success team, again, will reach out to get more information for mailing you your t-shirt. With that, on behalf of everyone here at VisualScript, thank you again so much for joining us and have a great rest of your day.